Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 15, Us. Now, it's really hard to believe that this was the last episode before the season finale. Like, next week, that's it. And then, we have to wait for Season 5. And the reason it feels so weird that, these past couple of episodes are really the end of this season is because, with the end of last season, it was like leading up to this, big season finale. It was like ramping up over and over, like the governor versus Rick and, you know, the main characters versus Woodbury and all that stuff. And, unfortunately, it led to sort of a boring season finale. I mean, it was really anticlimactic compared to what it seemed like it was going to be, but those episodes were just, each one was like just leading up to what we thought was going to be the big war, which we didn't really end up getting until this season, which was still amazing. But these episodes, even though they are absolutely amazing, it feels like they'd be like right in the middle of the season. And like I said, I'm not saying they're bad in any way. Like, you can look at last week's episode and see these episodes are definitely like season finale worthy. Like the last one, if it, I can't say it could have been the season finale because of course everyone knew that the season finale would just be everyone's at Terminus, or at least most of the people, because at this point, um, it seems like it's really just out of the main characters, Maggie, Sasha, Glenn, and Bob, and then we have our three new characters pretty much this season, and we might get everyone else next episode, or we might not even get everyone this season. It might be within the next couple episodes starting in the next season. But this episode was definitely good, and it was nice to see Glenn and Maggie, they did meet up, so it was cool that they out of all the groups that have kind of been heading towards Terminus, they were the ones who were basically on the same track, so they've met up. And then we got Rick, Carl, and Michonne in the beginning of this episode, but they weren't really in it that much. It was kind of just to show them, and it really, that was only there because it kind of ties into Daryl's story, which of course we knew once he was introduced to that group of guys who were basically just going around. We learned in this episode they do actually have some rules. They don't just like beat each other up, although they do. If you lie, then you get beat up, so they stick to their rules, but they do have rules, and they actually tend to follow them. And if they don't, that's when you're punished. It's not just hey, I beat you up, I'm gonna beat you up. And when we learn the rules in this episode, the claiming thing, it kind of leads back to the episode with Rick, and now we understand like why the one guy got choked out who did get to see Rick, and of course that was brought up, so we do know he's gonna recognize Rick, he's gonna remember him a little bit, and it's gonna lead into a huge confrontation between Daryl and Rick, having to figure out how are we gonna make this work, because all they can do is really join up, and Daryl can just go back to Rick, and then they take out these guys. But we learned the whole claim system where if you see something, you just say claim, and that's it. And that's how, in the episode with Rick, the two guys ended up fighting over the bed, because I'm assuming that's when he kind of first joined the group, and he was just like, like, too bad, and he told the guy, like, you better find your own bed, and they got into that fight because the guy made his claim, and that was all it took. So we learned the whole claim rule, and they do that. And then the one guy who, picks a fight with Daryl through the episode, he of course ends up dead. And at the end of the episode, we see sort of a turning point for Daryl where he's gonna, drape him up because he's been killed, and they put the arrow in his eye, which I knew he was dead once. Like, I knew there was a ton of blood, and I thought maybe he's just really beat up. And then the next scene they showed I think the very first guy was walking out, and he had his bow on his arm. I instantly knew, like, they actually just flat out killed that guy, and maybe he broke the rules a few times, and that was all it took. It wasn't just, oh, he did it once. It was like he did it multiple times, and they were just, tired of his crap, so, they got rid of him. But in that scene, Daryl was gonna, put the bloody, curtain over him, pretty much, or the sheet, I mean, and, he looked down at him and was just like, what's the point? And he just dropped it, and he picked up his stuff and left. And then when they were on the tracks after he found the sign for Terminus and stuff, he made that claim for like the little tomato that was growing out of the ground. And it showed, like, those two things really showed how he just kind of melded right in. Like, at first he was talking about, I'm not claiming nothing, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do that, just flat out. But he does by the end of this episode. He learned the rules and he sees, even though these guys are just gonna beat each other up, they aren't just gonna do it for no apparent reason. These people have rules, and if you break the rules within this confined group, you'll get the punishment for that. And I guess that sort of sense of chaos within sort of a strict ruling, it kind of, in a sense, kind of took him back to when he was with his brother, and so he kind of just fit right in. And the guy who's like the leader of the group, he's like an older version of Daryl. Like when they were walking, and like Daryl was smoking and the guy was drinking, it was like all I saw was that they were both wearing vests. I was like, he's just an older version of Daryl, and he's like a father figure and probably better than his big brother was. He's that type of figure who's in that same style of life, but he's not just like racist and trying to beat up anybody he can. He tries to set the rules so that the people who are just like him can definitely get along, even though he knows they aren't going to get along with other, quote unquote normal people. But I love that storyline, and it was cool to see that transition from him kind of just flat out not agreeing with any of their rules, and then by the end of the episode, he doesn't, cover up the guy, and he does make a claim for something. So he's kind of a part of the group, and I was expecting the guy to actually say something, or for them to show the older guy's face when he actually made the claim, but they didn't actually bother doing that. And then, like I said, they didn't need to, because it was kind of easy to notice he made his claim for something. So he's in that group, and I'm curious to see how much they do bond, throughout, mostly next season, because I don't think, maybe they'll be the last group to get there. Based off the trailer, Rick, Carl, and Michonne get split up, so they aren't going to be there. They might not make it to Terminus in the next episode, but, they're, Daryl and his group are, like, right behind Rick, Carl, and Michonne, because in that scene after he makes his claim, they walk right over the candy wrapper that Michonne has in her hand in the very beginning of this episode, and that was just a great tie-in to the show. Like, they are on their tracks, and when they find them, there's going to be a confrontation. So, I'm excited to see that, but I don't, like I said, I think we won't get that until next season, because I feel like this last episode is really just going to be like Rick, Carl, and Michonne dealing with this huge struggle, and then finally they make it to Terminus too, and maybe everyone will be there except for, Daryl and his group, and then they'll kind of save that and some of the, like the Beth plotline for next season too. But it was definitely an amazing episode. I love all of Daryl's stuff. The Glenn and Maggie thing, I was glad they found each other. That was just like the nice, sweet part of the episode. Also, we got to learn a little bit more about Eugene. He was, like, in this episode, I thought he was so funny, because it's like, he's like the really smart genius guy, or so they say. And then you watch the episode, and in the beginning, he's just talking about like video games and dinosaurs. And when he mentioned like undead dinosaurs, he mentioned a type of dinosaur I'd never even heard of. And then he was like, "That's a game worth a pre-order right there." And I was like, "That guy's a super nerd," like, because that's something I would say. Like, nerdy people pre-order games, and there's zombies all over the place, and he's talking about video games. And then he asks, I can't think of her name, but he asks her, like, so anyway, what type of games do you play? MMOs, RPGs, and stuff like that. And it just made me think, like, what type of scientist is he? And then it was like, well, he's super nerdy, so he kind of balances out. Like, it does, in a way, make sense. But all the stuff he was saying, it was just like, I don't think this guy's a genius at all. But they say he is, so I am curious to see exactly what he knows. And, of course, we aren't going to find out what really caused, the zombie virus, because that would kind of spoil a huge point in the show, even though it wouldn't exactly end the show. But obviously they aren't going to give that to us this season, and they might not give it to us at all, because who knows, he can end up dying, and then it's like, oh no, we lost this secret, and we never find out. But I was glad to see that we got to interact with, like, Eugene, Abraham, and I want to say her name was Rosita. And so it was cool to actually get a lot of them, especially out of Eugene. I feel like in the other episodes he had his little lines where, since he didn't say as much, it made him seem really, really weird. And in this one, he was talking a lot, because he kind of like the girl that Glenn was with. So it kind of got him talking a lot more. So I enjoyed that, and also we got a bit of his personality out of the fact that he kind of tricked Rosita into going to the other end of the tunnel, which, if he hadn't done that, then, Glenn would definitely be dead. So, it was cool to get that sense where, the flat out, the line he said was, even after I save the world, I do have to live with myself. And I thought that was a really good line because it started off like it seemed like it was going to be douchey when he said, like, even after I save the world, but it ended really well. And it was like, he is actually a good guy, and he, even though he's sort of awkward and weird and stuff and super nerdy, at heart he is a good person, and he knows even though he does have the knowledge to flat out save the world, he does have to help the couple of people who, he might come across here and there, because that the little things do matter. Because, you let all these people die and you save the whole world, you'll be happy, of course, but then it'll be like, who's to say I couldn't have helped like those one or two people that I just let fall to the wayside, and they could have enjoyed this too. So it was cool to get that little bit out of him as a character, and in the end, we did finally get Terminus, and the first thing I thought was it was weird that it was so empty, which creeped me out. I was a little worried automatically that that woman was going to turn around and she was going to end up being like one of the cannibals I've been hearing about. I don't know if that even remotely relates to this storyline or like this part of the story or what. In the comics, I have no idea, but it instantly creeped me out. I just thought she's a cannibal and those are human parts on that grill, and she's going to shoot somebody, and that's how that episode's going to end. That's honestly the first thing I thought, because I mean, it was, they were walked in, it was nice, it had the sign like lower your guns and you'll be greeted. So it made sense that it was empty because, maybe they saw them coming in from far away or something. So it was like, let's clear out this area and stuff while they're coming in, and then, send someone out to greet them, or send a couple of people out to greet them. And that's how you get into Terminus and stuff. But it was just like, they lower their guns, they walk in, they saw the little garden, they saw the tools like, pots and pans and things like that, and buckets, and then the one woman, and I just thought, that's suspicious. That makes me not feel comfortable, and I thought something bad was going to happen, but she seemed nice enough, and, she said, my name is Anne, I believe she said that, or Mary, I don't know, that's a very wide range, but I think she said one of those names, and then she welcomed him to Terminus, so a nice happy ending. Fortunately, nothing that was in my head happened, and she didn't like shoot somebody, which would have been an amazing ending. But I would have also been really upset if like they had this happy moment, like Glenn and Maggie get together, and then this woman is like crazy and just turns around and shoots somebody. But love the episode, can't wait for the season finale. I'm curious to see what other groups make it, if Daryl's group, if they end up meeting with Rick, if he's on his own and that's how they end up meeting up, and that's, who knows, that's how the season ends, who knows, but really excited for it, and definitely love this episode. So comment below, let me know what you guys thought, favorite parts, least favorite parts, and like I said, next week is the season finale, so what do you guys want to see? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.